Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video. Today I would like to talk to you about One Punch Man, and to be specific, the current fight that's going on in One Punch Man between Saitama and Garo. Now, as of this recording, chapter 163 just dropped, and I've read it, and I have my opinions, and this isn't going to be a review or anything, but more of a critique, I guess, of some sort, of how things have kind of gone in this fight. Now, if you are aware, or you may or may not be aware, chapter 162 actually had two different versions of the chapter. There was one where the battle ended and one where it continued. And honestly, I thought I might have made a video about how the ending of the fight happened in general. But then the revision came out like a month later, it feels. And then I had some thoughts on it, and I was gonna make it before this chapter even came out. This most recent chapter came out. But this kind of reinforces some of my thoughts on what exactly is happening in the chapters. And to stop beating around the bush, the original version of 162 had the battle ending, just like, and not just ending, but it was Garo learning a lesson. It was like nothing he was doing was affecting Saitama, and in the end of this big climactic battle of them like zipping through and causing like a distortion in the time space whatever, that even it seems like what's the number one hero? I forget what his name is. But like even him and his people are like, yo, what's the heck is going on here? And it ends with the two of them sitting down in like a broken down cabin and just chatting. And I loved that. I absolutely loved that. And then you get to the revised version of 162, and it's just more of the same, only now Garo is like becoming more godly. And I get that, like, now I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, I want to say that the original version of 162 was what Murata, the guy who draws this, right? I think, right? It's Murata, and then one is the art is done by Murata, and it sounds like that the original ending was more or less his idea for the most part. And then for whatever reason, that's the version that got released before one had revised what he wanted it to be. And I think that, like, while this still could technically end in that kind of ending, and maybe it will, and maybe they just like, maybe Murata, there was some kind of disconnect, and Murata and one weren't sure what to do as far as like stretching the battle out, which I have a thought on in general. And maybe the ending is always going to be the two of them sitting down and having a conversation, and Garo having learned a lesson that might isn't right, and that like it seems like he really learns a lesson about like, well, Saitama's a hero, but he doesn't care about the rankings and everything. Saitama is the hero to aspire to be, and even though Garo is like a villain and a monster, really what he wants is for heroes to be basically like Saitama, where you're going to help people no matter what. It's not about the rankings and the money, right? So that's really what he's an underdog person, right? He wants to be not a hero, but like somebody who stands up for the underdogs, the people that are not readily saved all the time, right? So I really liked that ending. And even though I think, yeah, you could have stretched it out a little bit to have it just be like, oh, Saitama actually does something, because he just kind of like keeps like walling him and smacks him around a couple of times as far as my memory is concerned. But it ends just so, some might say anticlimactically, but I think it's perfect. However, in the revised version, Garo just kind of keeps going. It's just kind of like there's no, the lesson isn't fully learned, and it just kind of keeps going. And while I'm not against that being like, oh, the stretching the fight out in general, it just seems like this fight's going on for a little longer than I thought. And honestly, I thought at the end of 163 it was gonna end, more or less, because so Garo basically he's a big monster for like a good chunk of their fight. with jowls and like wings and stuff like that. He kind of looks really cool. But then by the end of all of that part of 162, he kind of condenses down into like this like godly like space monster. And there is a good part where it's like, oh, like he finally comes down and he's changed, and Saitama's like, is that you? Is like kind of like a weird, and he rubs his eye like he's like, wait a second, what the heck am I looking at? Because he's got like nebulas and like galaxies like on him. He looks like a print of a space. And then we make our way into 163, and honestly, I just like, it's too much. I think it's too much. Now he's like throwing off nuclear blasts, and I honestly thought they were going to end it right. First of all, I really, really like the color page where it's like the two of them fighting in the clouds, and Genos is like, oh, master, like he knows what's going on up there. And I really liked him. So there's a little bit of an explanation of like Garo, like he's a copy guy. He copies people's techniques and then he makes them their own. And I like that he has like a mode for Saitama where it's like his face. I thought that was pretty good. There's some good humor in the chapter, but that's not really what I'm critiquing here. All of the boasting, I'm looking for payoff here, I guess, is what I'm looking for, right? And it doesn't have to be with him being like straight up defeated. But I was kind of expecting a payoff at the end of this chapter where he's lording over all of these heroes who are now afraid of him, and he kind of tells off Fang or Bang, and I was expecting Saitama to come down and just like karate chop him in the head, and then that just to be it. But I think that's part of the problem. The fight just keeps going and going and going. It especially now seems like Garo is not learning a lesson, and he's kind of doubling down on what he thought was what he needed to be. And it's not that I don't like his new form or the action, right? The action's really good. The comedy's really good, but I think it's cheapening a little bit. Especially since we know there's a what if Garo and Saitama just like sat down and talked about it. Like it seems to me like they're stretching this out for maybe no payoff, because the payoff is him learning a lesson and him and Saitama ultimately winning. And maybe Saitama will be recognized by some people, but that might not happen either until the very end of the series or ever. So I don't know. I mean, maybe next chapter I'll eat my words and all of the other heroes will run away except for maybe like Flashy Flash, Bang, Genos, and what is it, Bang's brother? Boom? I don't remember his name. But like other than the people that kind of know Saitama in general, maybe I'll eat my words in the next chapter. He'll come down and he'll just like smack Garo down, and Garo will be like, in my immense strength and power and godly whatever, he's still not going down, and then some lesson will be learned. But until then, I don't know how I feel about this. It feels like it's being dragged out for maybe no reason at all, and unless you hit that note of Saitama teaching him a lesson and something occurring in which Saitama wins in a meaningful way, because he's at this point, other than the number one hero who maybe could take on Garo, Saitama's really the only person that's going to be able to stand up to Garo in general. So I don't know. I don't want to drag this out. I just don't know how I feel about this change, and I'm waiting for a payoff. Because regardless of whether the Garo lives through the series or whether he's defeated and he dies and whatever, I do see the end of the series breaking down. I think his goal, his ultimate goal of ruining the establishment, will ultimately happen. I think the Hero Association will be gone by the end of the series, and that heroes will just do things out of the goodness of their hearts. Now, granted, I don't know how long the series is planned to be. It could go on for another 10 years, and I don't know. I don't know where this ends, where the train stops. It could end next year or something like that, and we could have like 10 more chapters or something like that. But it seems to me like, at the very least, in terms of this fight it needs to come to a very quick and very, very precise halt in which Garo learns a lesson of some sort. Saitama is recognized by at least one more person. I think it'll be Flashy Flash. And I think that this whole ordeal just needs to kind of come to a halt. And I feel like that's the most important thing. Garo needs to be disposed of quickly. And even if not everybody notices that it's Saitama that's going to do it, it needs to be kind of like, oh, what happened, right? That us as the audience will know, the people that know Saitama will know, but everybody else needs to know, everybody else needs to be confused a little bit. And I'm not looking for the moment when somebody else comes around and just like basically cucks Saitama out of the win, right? Whether it be Blast, now I've looked up his name, or literally anybody else, right? And I'd be even, I don't know, I'd be even more disappointed if Garo just drops dead at this point and doesn't learn a lesson, and everybody's just like, oh, well, that was a close one. And in reality, it was like, well, he would have been way worse if Saitama wasn't there. I guess I'm just getting to the point where I'm getting a little bit tired of Saitama not being recognized, and I get that that's the point, which is why I'm willing to settle for one person noticing him. But in general, I think that this fight needs to come to a very quick halt. And that's not because I'm not enjoying it. It's because I think it's going on for just a little longer than it needs to. Also, I want them to do that ending where both Saitama and Garo are talking at a table and just chilling. Because I think that was perfect at the end of a big rambunctious battle. And then the two of them just quietly settle their differences. And honestly, Garo could be the one that recognizes him. That's fine. Flashy Flash can go and just be like, oh, I don't know. But I'm expecting at least one person to join the Saitama gang in his apartment. And it might be Garo, it might be Flashy Flash, but I'm waiting for this just to kind of end in some capacity. And I think maybe they're ruining it by stretching it out more than it was in the original chapter of 162. I'm going to wrap it up there because I'm probably going on longer than I need to about this. I would like to hear other people's opinions. What do you think of this change? What do you think of this continuation of their fight? Did you like the original ending more? I personally kind of did. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like. I would greatly appreciate it. And if you want to see more videos like this about anime and Pokemon alike, make sure to subscribe and ring the bell. That way you'll get all the notifications when I upload. I will see you guys again very, very soon, hopefully. See you later.